So apparently we are spying on Australia. What are your views on this? So are we spying on Australia? What's it mean by that? So there's been some revelations apparently from the Australian government. We know that the Americans have been claiming that India has been trying to apparently, allegedly assassinate a Khalistani terrorist who is protected by the US, right? That, but that Panu fellow, that whole issue. Now the Australians are claiming that India has been operating a spying operation on Australian territory. So let's see what. Let's find this. Um, okay, let's do this. So here's a report from ABC, which is the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. This is from 30th April this year, 2024. India's Modi government operated nest of spies in Australia before being disrupted by ASIO, which is the Australian whatever intelligence thing. So Indian spies were apparently kicked out of Australia after being caught trying to steal secrets about sensitive defense projects and airport security, as well as classified information on Australia's trade relationships and so on and so forth. So that's an article from 30th of April. This is from the BBC, 1st of May this year. Australia sidesteps reports that it expelled Indian spies, and the Australian government has talked up its close ties with New Delhi despite reports that two Indian spies were expelled from the country in 2020, apparently. In 2021, Australia's intelligence chief said that foreign agents had been operating locally in the previous year, but he did not say their nationality. Multiple news outlets reported this week that they were from India and so on. That's from 1st of May this year. This is from 19th of June. This is an Indian publication. Four Indian spies apparently quietly expelled by Australia for attempting to leak sensitive information. So Australia has quietly expelled four Indian spies for attempting to blah 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 blah. The spies purportedly tried to gain access to sensitive information on Australia's defense technology and airport security protocols, and so on and much more. Uh, and so on. Okay, so that the spies developed targeted relationships with current and former politicians, a foreign embassy, and a state police service. The spies monitored their country's diaspora community, which means Indian, apparently, allegedly India's diaspora, and tried to obtain classified information about Australia's trade relationships, and so on. You can read this. And this is from September 20 this year, and today is September 22. So that's just a couple of days ago. So Indian spies allegation. Australian PM Albanese says such matters raised privately. What I do is act diplomatically and have those discussions, and that will no doubt be something that is raised, says Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Uh, and yeah, so that's the deal. Okay, that's the claim that is being made. That's the allegation that's being made, that India was operating a nest of spies in Australia, and the spies were allegedly, according to these claims, monitoring the Indian diaspora. They were cultivating relationships with current Australian politicians, former Australian politicians, at least one foreign embassy. They were trying to, and so on. Okay, whatever. You saw the claims. You can read up at your leisure if you like. That's the claim that's been made. Now, as always, there is no evidence that is presented to substantiate the claim. It's just a claim that's made. And so what do I make of this? Look, what I make of this is very simple. Every nation spies on the others. Okay, let's be very clear about this. When you have a foreign embassy on your territory, you have to treat it as a nest of spies. Israel is very clear, very explicit about this. If any member of the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, is discovered to have, let's say, uh, accepted a ride in a vehicle that has foreign diplomatic plates, that person is court martialed immediately. Because all foreign diplomats are considered to be foreign spies by Israel. And that's how you have to look at all diplomatic activity. In some way or the other, it is a form of spying. You could consider it to be a form of spying, except at maybe the highest level. So your high commissioner will probably not be a spy. They will be a diplomat. The ambassador won't be a spy. That person will be a diplomat usually. But you have military attaches and trade attaches and whatnot. Okay, all kinds of attaches you have, who have different functions to carry out, and some of these functions involve gathering intelligence overtly, covertly, whatever. So there's generally a certain percentage of trained career spies, professional spies in any embassy. So it's well known. Everyone knows this. So when it comes to a nation like India, historically, historically, an also ran kind of country, historically a nation with no ambition, which was once actually stated explicitly by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, that India has no aspirations or ambitions of being a great power. We just want to exist quietly in peace, and please leave us alone. That sort of thing, and we will. That's the kind of statement Mr. Manmohan Singh had made, Dr. Manmohan Singh had made. So historically, India has been like this the past since 47, right? And now India is a different kind of nation. India's economy is growing rapidly. India's overall hard power is expanding. India's interests are expanding. We have interests in a variety of geographical zones for a variety of reasons. Uh, it, uh, it's something to do with supply chains, for example. It's something to do with access to resources in various parts of the world, and so much more. So much more. So naturally, as your interests expand, you would want and need to gather information that is pertinent and relevant to that. And it's possible that there may be a little bit of maybe some grain of truth to what these allegations claim. Maybe, possibly, perhaps. Okay, I have no idea. It's possible there could be some grain of truth. Is it also not true that all the other foreign embassies in India spy on India? Of course they do. It's very clear. It's known. India expelled a bunch of Canadians last year, didn't we? A bunch of Canadian spies from the Canadian embassy or consulate or whatever it was, from probably from Delhi, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong, but you can look it up. So it's a routine thing. So it's no big news that an embassy would spy upon its host country. No big deal. But to announce this and publish this and tell the media about this, that is kind of unusual. Usually these cloak and dagger things are done behind the scenes, away from public view. And there's a whole lot of intrigue that goes on behind this. So to make this public is, well, the purpose of that would be to apply some kind of pressure on India. And Australia, as we know, is a nation that is essentially owned and controlled by the US. I mean, Australia is a wonderful nation, very nice people. We in India have great cricketing ties with Australia, and there's a significant Indian diaspora there. But overall, if you look at how the relationships work, Australia is part of the Five Eyes coalition, or whatever you want to call it, Five Eyes partnership. Australia is one of the Anglosphere nations, one of the closest allies of the US. Uh, and you could say, I mean, there's a permanent US military presence in Australia. The Australian government has also in the past allowed America, the United States, to test nuclear weapons on Australian soil. So the relationship is extremely close, and you could, to some extent, say that the US is Australia's guarantor of security and much more. And the relationship is kind of comparable to the relationship the US has with Japan. So, if the Australians have made such claims, allegations, you could perhaps imagine that there could be an American angle in this. The Americans, before this, the Canadians have made various claims, right? Justin Trudeau made various claims about whatever, the entire fiasco that happened last year, and the relationship, the diplomatic relationship between the two nations reached all-time lows because of Justin Trudeau, and the allegations he and his government made about India. One could also imagine that there could be a US hand behind this. The US controls the Five Eyes coalition, the Anglosphere. The US is the most powerful nation. All these other nations are its various client states, the closest clients. and they'll do what they're told. So if the US wants to apply pressure on India diplomatically, it can have it done via all its client states: the UK, the UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, and various other EU nations, NATO nations, whatnot. It's got a whole array of choices at its disposal. So my views are that the US is trying to apply pressure on India from a variety of fronts. The Canadian allegations, the American allegations about India allegedly trying to assassinate or neutralize a terrorist who is shielded and harbored by the Americans. These Australian allegations. It's all about creating this sense of siege. We are being besieged on from all sides. That sort of thing. So what does it mean? It means that they want India to change its approach to certain things. What could those things be? One is obviously the relationship with Russia. The Americans want India to cut off its relationship with Russia and become a complete US client state, a vassal state. India is too big, too large to become a US vassal state, but the Americans want this to happen. And things like that. So this is all part of US pressure tactics on India. That's my view on this. Whether it's true or not is beside the point. Every nation spies on each other, on the other. The Americans have a full time, I assure you, flying spying operation on India, and that's no big deal. As a great power, as a superpower, they would be spying on everybody, and it makes sense for them to do that. So if India is also doing a little bit of spying somewhere or the other, what's the big deal? I mean, it's no surprise to anyone. But yeah, so that's my view on this matter.